My Hero Academia Season 5 Episode 22 is out. And with this new episode, we see Twice face off against his inner demons and finally get a plus ultra moment. This episode covers 4 chapters from the My Hero manga, following the events of chapters 219, 220, 221, and 222. And so, without further ado, let's jump right into My Hero Academia Season 5 Episode 22, titled Sad Man's Parade. And as usual, don't forget to Detroit smash that like button and slide into that subscribe button's DMs to hit that notification bell. This episode opens up exactly where the last episode left off, with Himiko Toga and Twice being swarmed and manhandled by a group of Twice lookalike puppets who are being controlled by MLA higher-up Skeptic. Twice, in seeing copies of himself hold down Toga and try to snap her neck, begins to have a massive panic attack, as his fears and anxieties about whether or not he is the real version of himself or just a copy begin to resurface. Following this, the story then cuts to a flashback, where we learn of Twice's origin. As it turns out, after getting into a motorcycle accident at the age of 16, Twice fell into a long string of bad luck, resulting in him losing his job and the only friends he had. This, accompanied by the fact Twice had no family members, with both of his parents having passed away when he was in middle school, led him down the path of villainy, fully believing that the only person he could trust in this world was himself. This was until the fateful day when Twice's self-clones began to question whether or not they were clones or if they were actually the real Twice. In an attempt to find the answer to this question, Twice's clones decided to tie the so-called real Twice to a chair, slitting open his forehead in the process, and began battling and killing each other in a desperate attempt to prove that they were the real thing. And this battle continued until all of the copies had ended up killing one another. Having been forced to watch as his own clones brutally murdered one another in front of his very eyes, desperately trying to justify their own existence, unsurprisingly drove the real Twice a little bit insane, making him question whether or not he is actually the original and causing him to form a split personality. It also broke his mind so much that if he is not wearing a head covering, his two personalities begin fighting for control, causing great pain for Twice, making him feel like he is going to split in half. After this traumatic incident, Twice ended up coming to the arms dealer and the damsel in distress of this arc, Girin, for help, who took great care of the now mentally damaged villain and helped him join in with the League. So yeah, Girin was the first person to take Twice in and accept him for who he is. And this is why Twice seemed so desperate at the start of this arc to save Girin. He's basically Twice's first real friend. But anyway, after this flashback, we then cut right back to the present, where we see Twice in a moment of pure despair break free from Skeptic's puppet's grasp and make one last dash to save Toga. Unfortunately for our split personality Deadpool lookalike, this doesn't turn out too well, as Skeptic commands his puppets to restrain the villain once again, except this time he also tells them to severely injure him, forcing the puppets to break both of Twice's arms. However, in an utterly ironic twist, Twice's inner monologue reveals that he has purposely avoided injuring himself in the fear he was a clone, and that he would disappear. But now that his arms are broken and he is still alive, he knows for certain that he is the original Twice, overcoming all of his fears and trauma. And with this realization, Twice begins to duplicate himself once more. Something, might I add, he hasn't done and outright refused to do since his copies killed one another. And he creates an infinite army of himself, sending them out to save Toga and to fight the countless hordes of meta liberation soldiers. It's also here where we get a brief description of Twice's quirk, where it explains he can make up to 2 identical copies of anything or anyone. However, the more copies that are made, the weaker they become in terms of the amount of damage they can take before disappearing. Also, he can only make copies of things he has the proper data on and can visualize. So if he wanted to create a copy of a person, he would not only need to know exactly what they look like, but also all of their measurements. After this brief breakdown, we also get a glimpse at the Meta Liberation Army's response to this new development. Redestro remarks how now the war will be based on the quality of the soldiers rather than the quantity, and how it looks like Skeptic's plan has failed. But Skeptic, in hearing this, begins to break, refusing to accept this failure, claiming that he has only ever failed once in his life, something that he will never do again. After all of this, we then cut back to Dobby, who is still in the middle of a fight with Getten, and Mr. Compress, who, in seeing all of the Twice copies, informs the duplicates to take it easy, and not to eliminate all of them, as they need some of them to help wear down Gigantomachia. It is also during this time that Getten reveals not only can he control ice, but he can manipulate its form, being able to convert ice into water and vice versa. And with this reveal, Getten converts all of the water in the underground piping system underneath the city into ice, and he uses this ice to destroy multiple streets worth of Twices. Mr. Compress, who barely survived Getten's massive ice attack thanks to Twice's clones, mentions how Getten would be the perfect opponent to throw against Machia, but he doesn't know how long Dobby can hold out, as it was also revealed that Dobby's flames also burn his body, so he can't use them for too long. Hearing this, the Doctor, slightly worried that All For One's successor might fall against such an opponent, decides to wake up Gigantomachia early, and he tells the beast to rush in to save his new master. Following this, we then see Spinner and Shigaraki making their way to the central tower. On their way there, the duo come under heavy fire from the MLA soldiers, but they are quickly saved by the army of Twices. Shiggy asks Twice to clear the way to the tower so he can kill the MLA's leader, and Spinner faces off against the politician Koku Hanabata, who has just arrived on the scene and seems to be making the MLA soldiers stronger with his speeches. The story then jumps forward a small bit, and we see that Twice has made it all the way to the top of the central tower and has come face to face with Redestro. In preparation for a confrontation, Twice makes duplicates of his fellow League members, and together they all charge the villain, hoping to take him down with their numbers. But Redestro, using his currently unidentified quirk, which seems to grant him some form of gigantification, wipes out all of the duplicates in a single swipe. As one of the Twice duplicates is about to vanish away, he just barely manages to make another copy, who runs over to Girind, ensuring his friend's safety. Redestro, disgusted by the fact that the League managed to even make it to him, then goes and tries to eliminate the last Twice in the room. But he is caught off guard by Shigaraki, who attempted a surprise attack on the MLA leader. And with this, a fight between Shigaraki and Redestro ensues, during which Redestro begins to explain how his grandmother was not only the woman who coined the term quirks for meta abilities in the My Hero world, but that she also died fighting for equal rights for those born with meta powers. However, after she was killed, the government instead decided to create restrictions and regulations on quirk use, promoting the idea that people just shouldn't use their powers at all. Destro, Redestro's dad and the founder of the original Meta Liberation Army, saw this as not only an insult to everything his mother fought and died for, but also an insult to everyone born with a meta ability. And so he formed the Meta Liberation Army in an attempt to fight against the government to achieve what he believed to be true freedom for quirk users. Redestro then goes on to explain that the current Meta Liberation Army still carry this burden with them, and it is up to them, and more specifically him as the son of Destro, to achieve his father's goal, to free every quirk user. And as Redestro grabs onto Shigaraki, he asks him if he really thinks that the League of Villains carry the same weight, burden, and purpose to stay alive that the Meta Liberation Army does. However, Shigaraki doesn't respond to this question. Instead, he uses this time to inform Twice to get ready to cushion Girind's fall, as it's revealed that this Shigaraki is just the clone Redestro thought he destroyed earlier, and the real Shigaraki is at the bottom of the tower, and is about to do what he does best: destroy. And episode 22 comes to an end as the real Shigaraki puts his hand on the central tower, causing it to crumble. But to his surprise, it doesn't kill Redestro, and instead brings the two villain organization leaders face to face in the ruins of the central tower. Overall, this was an alright episode. There was some decent action, getting to see Twice's Infinite Double was great, and we also got our first glimpse at Redestro's true power. But to be honest, I don't feel like there is really much to talk about in this episode. The biggest part was most certainly Twice unlocking his full potential, but after that, it was just kind of meh. Not bad, but nothing really stood out. I feel like this arc has been lacking in emotion and tension. There's been no real sense of a threat to anyone with the exception of Toga, and the Meta Liberation leaders really seem like mindless generic bad guys without any real agenda or personality. I get that Redestro hasn't had much screen time yet, and he most certainly is the biggest personality of the group, but they have already skipped over a good amount of little character moments for both League and MLA members that really help you relate to and understand these characters' motives and ideals. Like, did you know that one of the key points about this arc in the manga is that it covers Spinner questioning his allegiance to the League, their ideals, and his own convictions? But in the anime so far, they have shown little to none of that at all. Did you know that there is a scene where Redestro checks to see if his assistant would join the MLA, and when he realizes that the assistant doesn't agree with their ideology, Redestro kills him in cold blood while crying and lamenting about the fact that he is losing a good friend? No, of course not, because so far in the anime, Redestro seems like some sort of remorseless robot. I generally like to give things the benefit of the doubt, but I have to say that so far this arc has really let me down. And it's not that it's bad. Like, a lot of people are probably really enjoying it right now, but it's the fact that I know if they had more time on it, it could have been absolutely amazing. It's like going to a 5-star restaurant and receiving a 3-star meal. You probably won't be disappointed, but you know that it could have been so much better. But let me know what you thought of this episode. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a like. For more My Hero content, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Plus Ultra.